order for the Monday, May 18th meeting of the Montgomery Economic Development Corporation. This meeting is by teleconference as per the March 16th order of the Office of the Governor. I'm opening it to public comments. Richard, do we have any public comments? Anyone signed up for that?
We did not have anyone submit public comment for tonight.
Excellent. So item number 3, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 20th, 2020. Amy did a wonderful job of putting those together. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any comments or discussion on those minutes? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 20th, 2020. The motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on the item? All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of the meeting held on April 20th, 2020, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously, and we will approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on April 20th, 2020. Item number 4, approval of the financial reports. Julie?
So we have the April 2020 financials to take a look at. A couple of things to note under the investments. That first text pool account is the sales tax that we're setting aside that we're estimating that we're going to owe for the Kroger arrangement. And then that second text pool account is the generic text pool account where we've been really moving our savings accounts or moving our savings into. Anthony had a couple of notes, and I'm going to say I have been swamped with my clients and the PPP applications, tracking, accounting, funding, how to get forgiveness. So I did not get a chance to connect with Anthony on some of my questions before this meeting. But I will follow up with him now that things have slowed down. But he had a couple of notes there at the bottom where he said the sales tax transfer of $45,332.51 was received in April. This will show on the next report. If you look on the actual to budget performance, the next page, that is our April accrual in sales tax. So it sounds like he's, of course, our financials only show through April, but it sounds like we've received it and maybe it was transferred in May, and maybe he just said April because it doesn't show on these reports that it was transferred into our account in April. I mean, it was accrued, but I don't know that I don't show that the cash was moved over yet. So I'm thinking that must have been in May. And then the sales tax of $78,774.99. I did ask Richard at the end of the day today, and we think that's probably, he already knows what the May sales tax is, so it's a preview of maybe what we're going to be getting. And he says it was received in May, so I'm just going to try to clarify with him, has he already moved that over? It seemed a lot sooner than what had been done in the past, but maybe it's accurate, and that would be a good thing. So I just have some clarifications on the transfer of, do we actually have the cash in our account, or is he referring to it just being accrued? But in any case, the April sales tax that was accrued was up about 10% from April of 2019. Of course, we know that this April accrual really represents February, so we had not hit COVID yet. So that's the trend we were hoping for, was an increase. And then also, if you look at that May number, he has at the bottom of the report of the 78,000. That too is up about 10% from the May of 19 figure. I would expect us to start seeing this drop off with June financial through the June 30th financials, which I guess would probably be the July meeting. And that would represent the month of April, where we've really taken the hit.
Right, and that would also, since it's a quarterly report, that also includes the grocery stores, which if you can remember what people were doing in March
Yep.
was a lot of shopping at the grocery stores and buying as much toilet paper and paper towels as they possibly could, which is taxable. So,
And now I guess we should have been buying meat. I don't know.
right, which is not sales taxable, but
No.
those quarterly reporters do have quite a bit of oomph in that quarter. And even though we'll have to give back quite a bit for the Kroger 380, also McCoy's, I think, is a big driver for that. And they've been quite busy year on year as well.
So you know, I think our financials obviously we're looking at the past at this point. They look good, but we know what it's going to end up. We know the trend is not going to continue to move up once we look at those June financials. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there's a cash flow report that's just for the MEDC checking account. And I'm going to ask Anthony to also start including the text pool activity on this cash flow report, because that's where he transferred out those quarterly accruals for the debt service transfer, the G&A transfer, and he transferred those out of the text pool account, and that's not going to show on this cash flow report, but it is cash flow. So I'm going to ask if he can add that on. And then as far as expenses in the month of April, there were just a handful of them. One was the travel and training. It was a COVID training, I believe, that Frida did for $79. And then those office supplies, one of those was actually a duplicate entry, and it's going to be corrected by the city. It was booked to the wrong account.
Okay. And Julie, also in that category, you know, below the office supplies number, there was an item for $222.79 that was mistakenly billed as an MEDC expense. That will get corrected because that was really a city expense.
Yes. Okay. So are there any questions on anything that I mentioned?
No, although I guess, you know, you and I had texted back and forth. It would be nice to get an idea of where we stand at the end of the year by, you know, having kind of an idea in our head for the rest of the year budget, what our mandatory expenditures are, both in terms of the debt service and our G&A transfers. So
and the sales tax accruals.
Yeah, exactly. So that, you know, we could look at, regardless of what happens with the sales tax, which is certainly, we'll say, messy and unknown. I don't expect it to go down more than, I'm not entirely sure, but probably no more than 25% from current levels, just because you're dragging so much of the tail end of, you know, positive, and then our fiscal year doesn't end until September, but it'll be July's actual numbers, and then the rest of the year, you know, has been so positive with so much growth. But
and our budget, you know, we were very conservative on our revenue budget in the first place for this fiscal year.
Right.
So even considering this downturn we are gonna experience, and we are gonna have, we've been over budget on revenues up to this point, and we were conservative on the budget in the first place. So
so we may actually meet our revenue target accidentally. But it'd be nice to just know what our absolute obligations are and where that puts us, just so we can have in our heads, you know, what is available regardless of what happens to our revenues.
Yeah, and I'd also, this may not be the time to ask, but I'd also like just an update on where we are with the Texas, the community, the comprehensive plan, or, you know, what we have talked about using these funds for, what we're saving for. Where are we on a timeline with that?
Right. Well, I think for me, that's my personal goal as well, is to be able to spend our funds to be able to help the city. Right. And this would be one way to, you know, it was a plan of ours all along, and this might be, you know, the one time that it needs it the most.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm pleased that MEDC should be able to significantly contribute. Right. Even with COVID.
Right. So, be nice to know what our obligations are and then what we can spend on top of the obligations and still feel very confident that we have the money to do so.
We can work on that. And I should be probably meeting with Richard this week now that my work has slowed down a little bit. I'm going to have some space in my schedule. So I think I'm going to probably get together with him this week too. So we can visit about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
just Julie, just let me know when's good for you. Well, I have a pretty busy week ahead. Almost
Okay.
everything's flexible in my week to move around.
Okay. Then we can try to get something on the books for sure.
Great. Does anyone else have questions for Julie or Richard? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the financial reports for April or May, depending on which is your perspective. They're dated April 30th.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the financial reports as presented. The motion is debatable, amendable, and requires a majority vote. Any further discussion on this item? All those in favor of approving the financial reports as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion carries unanimously and we will approve the financial report. Item number 5, report on utility grant program to support local businesses in the city of Montgomery. Richard?
Okay, thus far we've had 2 applications fully submitted. For each of them, we reached back, got a couple questions answered, and haven't notified them yet. I should be notifying them tomorrow that they'll be approved for those. We've had a couple other phone calls that haven't followed up with paperwork coming in. I believe either tomorrow or Wednesday is going to be the last day for this billing month for entering information into the billing system before the next notices go out. So these accounts will have that accounted for prior to that cutoff. And then if any come in later, they'll be reviewed and entered into the system as appropriate.
So Richard, what is the application process? Again, for how long does it go on for?
There was not an end time, specified when it was enacted by the MEDC, so it can continue as long as the MEDC feels it's valid. There is a $250 limit per applicant, so that will more than likely last, depending on the amount of water flow at that location. It could last anywhere from 1 month to 4 months.
Okay.
For the location. If it's a smaller business, say in the downtown area, like a couple that we've received, it'll probably last 3 to 4 months for them. There's a written application on the website, and it does include supplying some financial information and showing that they have a documented loss from their business. And I don't think it's too onerous. If someone has a specific question, I'd certainly be happy to talk to them.
Has it cost you or the utility clerk a significant amount of effort to administer this?
I would say that based on talking with Haley, who's the utility clerk, I don't think she's spent more than an hour of time thus far, including phone calls, paperwork handling, and it's probably not taken more than an hour of my time here either.
Okay.
Thus far. I'll be trying to follow up by phone call as a first preference with speaking with them. I don't anticipate those calls will probably last more than 5-10 minutes unless they have specific questions. So
okay.
I think, because the application process is fairly simple and straightforward, that there's not going to be a long review or approval process for any single one of these, that even if they continue to come in.
Right. Okay.
Is there to Tom's question, is there anything we need to think about or talk about on when we want to shut this down or when we stop accepting applications, or is it as this uncertain environment develops, or?
Yeah. Well, of course, that's up to the MEDC board. I think it'd probably be prudent to leave it open at least as long as there's an emergency situation at hand. There may be some businesses who have, they may have heard of it and not yet applied for it because they've been handling their expenses, but in a month or two,
Sure.
if their business continues to be reduced, may change their mind.
Okay.
And it may also be, maybe we should make one more effort to try to put out the word.
So are you promoting it or getting the word out?
Well, we put it on the city and the MEDC portion of the city website. It has been the subject of a Facebook post. It might be something that when the next water and utility bills go out, maybe we can include a specific reference for that as well. We would have to be very specific to clarify. However, in that case, it's just for businesses because those mailings also go out to individual residents.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be difficult to do a personal delivery of information.
Yeah, I do think so as well.
Yeah, I don't see, we could just put something in there on that included in the insert with the next water bill, that businesses only, business accounts only, and just maybe direct them to, you don't have to put all the details, but direct them to the website where the application can be found.
That might be it. Just say business customers, please refer to this page.
Right. To see if you qualify for.
Do we not have a list of active sales tax businesses in the city?
We probably would for those that have a business account. We probably would not include home-based businesses. So if you had a commercial water account, then yes, although you'd probably have to strike out ones that were not sales tax generating by guesstimate.
I think it was set up also, the home-based or not, as long as they had paid in the dollar amount in taxes. So we should have some type of an account for that.
Right. So we'd miss a few unless we knew of them personally.
Right. I mean, the home-based businesses, there can be some difficulty if the business name doesn't match up with the name on the account. We might have trouble tracking them down because the city's only contact is with the individual, not with the business. With those that are a business-specific account, that's easier because we have the business contact information.
Right.
That will take more personnel time, but it's certainly something we can follow up on.
I think Julie's thing of putting it in the water bill, but less information and more specific, just, you know, if you're a business harmed by this, please see this web link for more information about the COVID-19 utility grant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we can make that our first line of effort. And if that doesn't seem to get enough communication, we can talk about a follow-up step from there.
Right. That sounds like a good plan. Does anyone else have any questions for Richard or comments on this action item or non-action item rather? All right, then with your permission, since this is not an action item, we'll just go on to item number 6, update on Montgomery Mudbugs and Music Festival. Richard, this is also you.
Yeah, thank you. This will be a pretty short update. I have been in communication with Charlie Diggs. He's pushed the event date on his website back and on Facebook. Tells me he's going to continue to push that back until such time as the state and county authorities to allow the event to go forward. His intent is to move it forward as soon as possible after getting clearance to hold the event. He envisions, depending on the timing of being able to hold this event when he gets that word, between 1 and 3 weeks after getting that word until hosting the event. So he does plan to have a pretty aggressive schedule.
I was gonna say, he doesn't mess around, does he?
No, I think he's a man of action, and he is, I imagine him almost like that cartoon character whose feet are spinning before they actually get moving. And I think he is really anxious to hold this event and is excited by it. He just is frustrated by the inability to actually do it.
Right. And I suppose there's a first mover advantage as well. Plenty of people are eager to do something, anything.
Definitely, and I'm encouraged that somebody with that level of excitement, once the gates are allowed to open, might put Montgomery as one of the first places where a group of people will come, being willing to spend money.
Right.
Wonder when crawdad season's over with.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm not entirely sure of will work with his timing. I know we're still in good time right now, but that's going to start to wane after a while. So he may end up having to change the food target if
I want
this
to say
continues.
it's June or July, but they're commercially grown, so I suppose there's a never-ending cycle for them. But again, knowing Charlie, he'll just turn it into something else.
Well, hopefully we get the go ahead in just a couple of weeks, saying we don't have to find that one out the hard way.
Right. Okay, any other questions for Richard on this topic? All right, with your consent, we'll move on to item number 7, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the Southern Rum Runners Festival event.
Okay. This update's certainly just going to be an update. I've briefly communicated with Southern Rum Runners since the last meeting. They have been moving forward with contacting breweries and vendors. They've had difficulty contacting some of them with the closures out there, so they can't always get to the person they want to talk to. I've also received a couple contract updates from the city attorney, and I'm working on getting back with Southern Rum Runners to discuss those revisions, and then scheduling to bring Rob back for what I hope is an updated and a near on target presentation for the event that's planned for October.
I actually read in the Wall Street Journal today that the big breweries like Miller and Coors and Anheuser-Busch are doing, or actually I guess Anheuser-Busch and Coors are together now, but they're doing much better, and the smaller breweries are really struggling because they rely on their tap rooms to provide their cash flow. So it's, well, plus you can't buy, you know, beer in 36 packs of the smaller breweries at grocery stores. So it'll be interesting to see if craft is got the same number of I guess breweries able to attend, if they all still exist after all of this is over.
Small correction, Anheuser-Busch is owned by InBev, and Miller Coors.
Is it Miller Coors? Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the unknown part of the economic question is here, as you say, is, you know, we'll have to see what happens with the craft beer companies as to who,
Right.
I guess, who makes it out in one piece.
Right. Well, although I suppose, you know, at that point they'd be, you know, similar to Charlie's group, where, you know, they'd be eager to participate in any event that's going on, and, you know, being early on in the first mover has an advantage for activity. They'll be much more financially willing to, or need to, get out and participate. So hopefully we will be able to, health-wise, it will be a go. Any questions, any comments, any direction for Richard on this item? Well, then, with your permission, I'll move on to item number 8, discussion, consideration, and possible action of future marketing and tourism advertising options. Richard? Okay,
well, since the February MEDC meeting, the entire economic conditions under which the city is operating, everyone's familiar with that, but those go directly to marketing and tourism, and those situations have changed significantly. You know, recently we just separated Frida, you know, who is the marketing and tourism director. You know, we had with her position being sales tax driven with the MEDC, you know, we don't have the revenue that's going to continue to come in. I'll talk more about the taxes used in my report. We've also had comments since last meeting related to, you know, changes that and directions the MEDC board wanted to see. What I wanted to do with this here is, you know, I guess basically we're having to from earlier this year, you know, look at entire different operational issues in terms of the conditions we face, and we don't even know what the future of marketing tourism may look at for the intermediate term here in the city. Certainly, we're not, liable to get much travel from far off, and a lot of our marketing, we may end up having to realize that we need to deal more local than we were considering before. We are certainly looking at doing more of the social media type work that was discussed. And there's a lot of the future effects of the COVID-19 pandemic that are still largely unknown, just like the tax issues. We have limited information available for business activity for March, for which we do have some of the total tax numbers. We have virtually no information for the month of April by comparison. And the month of April is when we're expecting to see, the biggest drop. Hopefully the business for the month of May, with businesses reopening, we will start to see an increase, but we don't know how deep that drop will be, and we don't know the rate of increase as we start to go back up. So I think this forces us to look more closely at cost-effective options, for expending the MEDC funds for this period. And I think that does have us, as discussed previously, with a high intensity placed on social media for the foreseeable future. And it may be both possible and probable that there are some contracting opportunities. I think we may also need to end up looking for certain ways to be creative into helping work with the city's image. And as everyone here has seen, there was a post on the city's Facebook page about some work that the city staff did in designing, and then the Public Works Department did in painting up one of the car stops in the downtown area.
Yes, it looks awesome.
Okay, is there anyone who hasn't seen that?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, let me put that on the screen here real quick. There's a photo of that. And this was something that, okay, can we all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, this is something that was done, quite inexpensively. It didn't take up more than probably three or 4 hours of staff time to design in the City Hall office that had several people involved. It probably took about an hour and a half of Public Works time doing this as a first prototype, but it's something that speaks directly to the history of the city as the birthplace of the Texas flag, the identity of the city. And while this was done kind of in between other jobs by Public Works, it's something we've already been asked by people who've seen it to extend through the downtown area. I mean, I'm just saying that this is kind of one way that the city may be able to look at using assets we have in a creative way, or creatively using other ways to inexpensively help market the city.
And just looking at the metrics on social media, the picture was posted and almost 2,500 people saw it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a good example of taking, literally an everyday object, viewing it differently, and putting a different spin on it. I'm not saying every use, would maybe be that different or that creative, but I do think there's ways we can creatively and do different things that where the financial cost is fairly low and the upside of image is much higher than the cost into it. Talking with Mike Muckleroy, the Public Works Director, he believes that for an existing car stop like this to be painted and put in place, for city staff time is probably around $50 to $60. And it's something that they can fit in from time to time in between other jobs.
Oh, so do they have kind of a standing, when they have a little bit of downtime, they'll do a few more of these?
They do plan to do that as they have some time available,
okay,
coming up in the near, and given the number of these downtown for the extended future. The most difficult part of this was cutting out a stencil to be able to get the star to wrap around across 3 different sides.
Yes, the angles.
So just a thought, when they get around to doing more, let's not just put it down and put it on social media. Let's, like make people find it and kind of make it a thing for, you know, again, again, on social media, it's the interactive nature of people getting excited about things and searching around and being around.
So something like a scavenger hunt where we can put the word out on the Facebook page and let people go out and find it.
Right. So
I like that idea.
Somebody would have to
That's a
do
good
more work
idea.
to find out how best. Julie, your kids are probably the best age to be telling us how to do this, or maybe one of your siblings who are a little bit older than your kids. They're younger, older, whichever direction we're talking about. But to like, what do kids want to do, and what do they find exciting? And
Well, yeah, and you know, I know this. You saying about, you know, kind of a hide and go seek or a scavenger hunt type style reminds me of what the snowball Montgomery Snowballs did. Was it last year?
Yeah, with their rock.
Yeah, and if you found their rock that was hidden, you got to bring it in for a free snow cone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that seemed that got a lot of interest.
Right. Right. I can engrave rocks on my laser just in case anyone wants to know that.
But not that we can. I'd love to say we could, you know, find one of these and come get yourself a free Texas flag. But these are a lot bigger than rocks, so it's not quite as difficult.
Right, but that's actually a good idea, because we do have 1 or 2 flags. It might be, you know, photograph yourself and tag yourself at all these places, and then come get your flag.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun incentive, and I think then you've got more Texas flags flying, hopefully. So I mean, that's a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just as a point of reference to that idea, Julie, you know, we sell the Texas flags for $5, but the cost from our purchase was less than that. So we're talking about something that would be a very low investment in terms of the incentive, but it has potential for a far greater reward.
I think the city's actually already recouped the cost of the flags by the ones that they've sold. Susan, you might, or Anthony might have to look into it. Susan, you might remember, but I think we had to sell a certain amount in order to make the money back. And I think we've already gotten there. That's why we stopped with the stupid accounting between MEDC and the city and just made the city purchase them all, because it was an accounting nightmare and it wasn't worth the time. We were losing money on the time spent on the accounting.
Yes, I went up to City Hall and bought another one last week.
Me too.
And, you know, and you never know, there might be other options for us, you know.
Yeah.
This is something we could do more than 1 or 2 times before it probably wears off. Maybe there's a business that would specifically want us to put one there, and maybe they would end up providing an incentive for it before they were specifically identified.
Or they would pay for the labor to have it done, to have it placed there. And then we could use it in other activities to bring people here. So you could basically have them sponsored.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Yeah, that just on something relatively simple like this, it has a lot of possibilities, and I think almost all of them, you know, can be a win for the city and the MDC.
Right. But in general, going back to more of a broader perspective, public art and the things that we have here that are beautiful are things that people can do and will come to see. I think in a new environment where you can't be together and go to crowded spaces with lots of other people, you know, I think you can, I don't want to say push, because that's not, I think you can market the city as a socially distant family destination, or a, you know, safe and uncrowded place with these activities that your kids will enjoy doing. By the way, your teenager can take these amazing Instagram worthy photos at all of these great spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And having more of that will help.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of places in different areas that, you know, you put this place out there, you know, the people will come there to take the photos. While they're coming to take the photos and see those sites, they're in the area. Many of them are going to spend money, and that you know, once you get them to the area, you have the opportunity. If you can't get them here, it doesn't matter.
Right. You know, they'll see the fresh air and they'll feel safe because it's not, you know, a million people at the mall. They'll feel comfortable sitting down at a restaurant and having you know, a meal with good food and then, you know, walking around. It's just a different type of destination than, I mean, I don't want to knock Disneyland because it definitely has its own thing, but standing in line for an hour, you know, at whatever Magic Mountain with, you know, 3,000 people does not make you think social distancing.
Yeah. Well, and now with restaurants being able to move to 50% capacity, that only helps with eating and things like that when they do come to town.
Right.
Well, related back to this one parking item, I'll speak with Public Works so that they don't place anything before they understand what we're going to try to do with that. Okay. But with regards to the rest of it, yeah, we're definitely going to keep our eyes open for areas that we can think of, you know, for some kind of public art, and I'm definitely open to suggestions.
Okay. Well, definitely the mural thing with the Montgomery mural on 149 South, that's something that, you know, I think we could push more, and the owner's been really accommodating to the idea of it, but having another one, we've talked about that on the west end of town, I think would be really, really attractive.
Yes.
This may be a good time for us to start to revisit that, and I will start looking at that with city staff to see if this is the time we can do something about making that happen.
Right.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. And this is the kind of thing that if you have ideas throughout the month, I'm always welcome to talk about it or hear them. Right. I think this is kind of an example of something that is ongoing.
Right, and artistic friends or neighbors or kids at school, stuff like that. I mean, I think you know, it's really got to be a community based idea. It's not just 7 people on a board coming up with ideas as well.
Right, and especially if you find the right artist with the right interest. And I'll tell you, I'm not the right artist. That's not me, but I can't get a stick figure straight most of the time, but I'm happy to help do my part to make it happen.
Right. Well, one thing that Sarah and I had talked about is, you know, the cows on parade, if you'd seen those in Chicago ever, and they have different things, like in Madison, Wisconsin, they've got Bucky the Badger, and he's wearing different clothes everywhere, and people take, you know, there's maps of him and people go to each place and they take pictures with him. And same thing with the cows on parade. There's obviously a cow and they're painted in different patterns and whatever by different artists or sponsored by different people. So I was thinking about something like that here, but what does Texas have? I mean, Montgomery have, it's the Texas flag. So, you know, that might be a thought, is if you could figure out different ways to have the Texas flag represented in different locations and have people visit each of those. You know, like Eco has the eye, you know, where you take your picture on that. You know, you want to have some destination art that people want to go to, and that would also, you know, presumably help people draw people around the city.
Yeah, a couple of other places that have that, Bryan College Station has the train engine. There are several sponsored different painted train engines all throughout the Bryan College Station area. And they're dressed up, or like you're saying, the cows on parade. And then Athens, Georgia has the bulldogs all over town, and they're dressed, they're painted different, you know, but it's all sponsored by different businesses.
I have to boo them naturally because of where I went to college, but it is a good idea anyway.
It's an example of, you know, it's a good, and I think I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and I can't remember what they had there on the beach, but they had several. We took pictures with one, I just don't remember what it was, but a lot of cities have done things like that, and people do go around and try to take pictures with the different ones.
We have the goat.
Right. I guess we could have goats everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have goats on parade.
There you go. Well, I like that.
But I bet if we think about it, there's certainly ideas we can do to turn that part of the city's history into something that's a little more of a living reality.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, you know, I think Katrina had said that, you know, the younger generation is, you know, they just don't want to go and look at buildings and listen to things about history. You know, they want to go do things and take pictures of themselves.
Yes.
And, you know, that it is what it is.
Right.
You know, you can have the most amazing history, but if you don't have a good place to take your picture, then they're not going to come.
Yeah. But if you can get a couple of those places and get them there, then the rest of it can fold into place.
I was going to say, you need to have something iconic that people will associate with you and want to come here because they saw that iconic picture or it became the place.
Right.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, we already have the concept. The concept is that we're the birthplace of the Texas flag, so we have that part of the puzzle already.
Yes.
Right. It's a really important part. Yeah, we could be San Diego, Texas. So we've got a lot going for us. We just have to maximize it.
For sure. This morning I was on the phone with the Chamber of Commerce for South Padre Island for a client. And of course I brought up, I said, well, I work remotely and I'm in Montgomery, Texas. I said, did you know that's the birthplace of the Texas flag? No. I said, oh yes, you need to come. You know, people just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do these ideas, what is the plan of getting that information out?
That's definitely got to be part of the package. You're right. We can't just start doing something and then market it. It has to be all part of one plan.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think that's where social media is definitely the first line, for the offense there of getting that word out. As was mentioned earlier, when we placed down the item in this photo, it went on to Facebook. That's where people made comments. That's where people shared it. We did one thing in terms of promoting it, but the people who saw that and repeated it or commented, they turned around and magnified that. And so I think that shows the value of the social media there. And certainly, I don't think everything is a matter of drop it, put one photo, and then the word gets out. But I think it's the first step.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely using social media right now as I think we're just gathering eyeballs and not really doing anything in terms of much building our brand, very much consistency in terms of having people come to us. We're certainly not using the most effective methods of gathering attention, like videos, like stories and things like that. It's definitely better than it has been. I mean, 2 years ago it was zero. That's definitely something that Sarah pushed and has dragged the city kicking and screaming into. But we definitely need a cohesive plan and strategy that goes along with some of these other ideas.
Yeah.
And I think it should be in place before, we should be practicing before we come up and unveil, our scavenger hunt or, our goats on parade or the completed downtown renovation, because then you want to have, your maximum impact rather than, with your big splash. You want to make sure that how to, unveil everything rather than learning the process at the same time.
Well, and plus you want to already have an audience there to get that out instead of sticking it out and hoping people find it.
Right. So I think we're slowly building an audience. I mean, it's not been aggressively painful, but it's not been as quick as, it's taken 2 years to get to 2,800 followers on Facebook, which is definitely better than nothing, but it's definitely not been.
Is that something that we've mentioned in the water bills, things like that? Obviously, that's kind of a captive audience. Also, Richard, on the curb stops there, is that something that you need to have our committee participate in as far as monetary? To help out. I'm thinking if you're going to try to get this big bang, you're going to need more than one, and they're going to do them when they get time.
Well, I do know that it has been something that people have remarked they would like to see throughout the city. I guess as you're saying there, that is something that, if the MEDC wanted to commit towards the cost of, I could come back next month with an estimate in terms of what it would take to do different levels or different amounts throughout the city. As I said, the Public Works Director estimates that's in the $50 to $55 range, which includes materials and the city portion or labor for city employees. So that's pretty much a top end cost there.
Are these able to be salvaged if with the master plan or the redevelopment of downtown? Are these going to be pulled up if we start going through these parking lots or these interior spaces?
Yeah, whether they were painted or even not painted, I would certainly intend that we would collect them and move them out of the way, because they do have a value to them. They're made of concrete, so they have some weight. If you look at it close, if you've looked at them closely, there's typically 2 holes at the top.
Right.
What you do is you put them in place and typically drive rebar through them. So if a car hits them, they don't move. Sometimes you see them out of place because either the metal holding them in is rusted or they were never anchored. The one that we put out there, they definitely anchored that in place.
Okay.
I would hope they'd straighten them out too. I noticed. I'm assuming that one's in front of the old Montgomery Steakhouse. It looks like that familiar.
Yeah, it's in the parking spot, adjacent to the little information kiosk out there. But yes, if I could pan that image straight up, you would see the steakhouse.
Yeah. Okay. I'm assuming they would straighten all the other ones up on the other side.
That would be the plan along the way as they go through. They would pressure wash, paint, but then straighten them up and put them in an orderly fashion.
Good.
We could also look into sponsoring them as well. Asking citizens if they want their names scrolled on them.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like you got a perfect spot on the white stripe down the top would certainly stand out.
It would indeed, and if you could see the other side of that, the white, the red stripe is on one side, the white stripe on the top, and then rotates around to the back. The blue field goes all the way over, and the white star goes just a bit onto the back. So, imagine that you're looking at it from about a 45-degree angle as you come into park. So you're kind of looking at the middle downward is kind of the impression. Whether you want to, if you wanted to put a business name, say on the front or on the top, or even have sponsored people, they could also be on the back side.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certainly a lot of ways to take the idea, alter it, and run with it.
Question: what agenda item are we on right now?
Number 8.
Development.
Yes.
Okay, because this is more of a workshop discussion, is it not?
No, I believe we're talking about marketing options.
I thought we went to a different agenda item. You just said we're on development.
No, we're talking about number 8.
Okay.
But these curb stops are just going to be the curb stops that are city property, correct? Aren't planning on doing private property parking lots downtown.
Right. Our plan is only continue as we only to do city property. So the parts of the downtown area that are city property. Park areas, city hall. If someone wanted to run with that for a private business, or if a private business wanted to approach us, I'd certainly be willing to have the conversation. Right. But we also have a job to do while we're here at the city, and our primary job is, I'm not going to say that helping beautify the city, helping market the city, and helping provide parking aren't parts of what we do, but we also have a lot of other priorities out there.
Right.
Okay. Well, it definitely sounds like we have a lot of internally generated marketing ideas But we also need to figure out a way to step up the game in terms of presenting it on social media. Because I think that that's a pretty obvious way that we need to, that's been a priority for some time, is social media.
Okay.
Well, I think we need to get a social media plan going and get that started. We can't just focus on Facebook and say that's doing great. Facebook is doing great, but there's so much more out there, and Facebook just reaches a certain segment of the population. So I think we need to really get some kind of plan and get that started as soon as possible.
Well, that's kind of the $1 million question, is how do you drive people to your website? I mean, that's, companies are getting rich off of that, and they don't drive anybody to you. So
Right.
hire a young kid. They know how to do it all. Twitter, the whole 9 yards. So
Maybe. They certainly know how to do things for themselves, but whether they can do it for an overall corporate image is another question.
that's true.
So that goes back to what Richard, I don't know if it was on this agenda item, but he said it may have been in the beginning when he was introducing it, maybe looking at some contract work for that, to maybe I don't know, someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of this. Was one of the, I guess where I mentioned that was talking about doing things a little more creatively and cost effectively, and I did throw contracting out as one potential option.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, this may be an opportunity for something like that.
Well, one of the things that I thought we might have to bite the bullet on is contracting out our website. It certainly appears that Unicode was not entirely truthful when they talked to us about what the existing contract included. We were under the impression that what we wanted sounded like a specialty website or what is it called, Susan? Specialty subsite. And they said, no, it's included here. And now they're saying it is a specialty subsite. And I'm not sure if the attempts that we've made have just not been done very skillfully, or whether we really do need to go with the specialty subsite. But it seems that either our existing framework is not going to be adequate to give us a tourism type website, or we don't have the skills to make that happen, either internally, or the people we've hired, or the people who are volunteering to make it happen are obviously not website experts. So that might be something to
I could
consider.
get some additional information from Unicode and maybe look at what we can do and see if there's something more that we can do.
Okay. All right, does anyone have any more items to discuss under item number 8? So we might need this, Richard, on the next agenda to circle back around, either updates or plans, or for sure options for outsourcing some of these items potentially.
Okay. We'll make a note to bring that back.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything they want to add for the next meeting under this heading?
No, not right now.
Okay. Item number 9, or with your permission, I'll move on then. Item number 9, economic development report, city development report, and city engineers report. Richard?
Okay, I referred to it earlier, but here I want to make some notes with regards to the city sales tax. Without trying to rehash some of what's already been said, May 2020, we have the total amount. We don't have all the detailed data, but it's a quarterly activity month. It's 12% down from the last quarterly period, but it's also up 11% a year to date from the same quarter. So for the activity, whether it's a quarterly payer for January, February, March, or a monthly payer for the month of March, it was only partly affected with the COVID situation, but it's the very beginning of that, which of course, then when we get the April information for business, we will start to see much stronger effect. We just don't know how much. Originally, I was concerned that it was going to be extremely significant without knowing what the detailed information on that. As I started to look into more information, I started thinking a 30% reduction of income was probably a good estimate. I'm refining that number, and it's hard to come up with a real number based on the lack of solid information, and we're just not going to have solid information for a while, but we're trying our hardest to work with what limited information we do have. It'll be, I think it'll be the June report before we see the April activity numbers. One thing in going through a lot of this information is a lot of the large generators of sales tax in the city, you have some resistance to a large drop. Kroger, Berkshire Brothers, McCoy's, Jim's Hardware, they're among that top list. And as I was looking through the February numbers, I want to say 7 providers account for approximately 60% of the city's sales tax revenue. And but when you get below that, it starts to spread out amongst a greater variety of businesses. In that variety of businesses, of course, you have the restaurants, and the retail stores that are highly susceptible because they've been closed. Many of them closed late in March, and some, are just now opening, might still be closed, or opened, in a limited capacity in parts of April. And we don't have the information, but we expect those to be highly affected. But we also have seen that, there is support, in the tax base, online shopping, whether it be Amazon, whether it be the telecommunications companies, cable, satellite TV, the internet companies, those all are probably somewhat resistant. Some of them may even, have the possibility to increase the revenue. I think there is certainly no doubt tax revenues are going to be down and could be down a fair bit for months to come. But there are some positive signs that exist throughout that information. It's just going to be another month before we actually start to have enough information to do more than just talk about conjecture, I think.
Richard, some of the information that Amy put on the MEDC website also pointed out that payers have the option to delay their sales tax payment. And Julie may actually know how long that is, but that might make the payments schedules even lumpier for some time to come. Julie, do you know how long those delays are allowed?
I don't.
Okay.
I know that franchise tax has been extended to July 15th. But as far as the sales tax goes, my clients have all been paying it on time.
Okay. But I believe that if you've had, I believe that there is a waiver, you don't have to pay it on time, which means that.
Well, I think what it is, I'm not sure that there's an actual date. I can research it, but I don't think there's an actual date. I think it's more of a make a payment plan with the state. Call, make an arrangement with the state, get on the phone with someone who can pull your account, notate it, and make a plan on how to pay your sales tax. I don't think there's a catch-all for everyone on a certain date of extension.
Which is even worse then, because if you can't reach the state,
that's exactly right.
So they could be backed up to who knows when, and they could make a payment plan that was.
That's exact, and everybody can be very different.
So, wow. That makes it even harder for us to understand. Well, even, I mean, I think, in some ways, like Richard was saying, if we understand what's happening, say, with our top 7 payers, then that makes things acceptable. But to understand what's happening, you have to be able to draw conclusions from your data. And
Right.
if your data is junk because people are all on different plans, then it becomes very difficult to understand what's going on.
Right. Mm.
That's interesting.
Okay, well, and we're going to keep on looking at what data we get as we can get it, and keep working on refining that. I'm really quite frustrated with it because I love to have good information, and good information is just in short supply at the moment, and will continue to be in short supply for a while.
So the only happy news is that Chick-Fil-A is opening in 4 days.
3 days.
3 days now.
Yeah, they're happily posting day-to-day updates on their website, and I'll take that as the segue into the development part of the report. Chick-fil-A will be opening on the 21st. I've heard that they have plans to work with both of the local area high schools on the 20th before they are actually opening. So they're going to be. I think they're going to be busy all week and probably will be for a while. The city police chief and I, probably going back more than a month, that we had our first conversation about potential traffic patterns adjusting because of Chick-fil-A. When I first saw the location they were going to build, I was puzzled why they picked that area. But if you envision how that area connects around the backside to 2854, you can see that they have multiple accesses to highways, and in many ways that may be a preferential way for a lot of people to approach, unless you're heading east on 105 and happen to turn right without having to cross traffic into there. I think they've done a good job in their parking lot design, and then how they've designed their drive-through location there. So I think they're going to be a good driver of sales tax into the city. And one of the best things they'll do is they won't just displace business within the city where someone from Montgomery, maybe they were going to go to a different dining facility and then go to Chick-fil-A. That really, from our perspective, just transfers the tax from one payer to another. But Chick-fil-A will generate people coming from outside the city into the city. And those are new sales taxpayers, and that's going to be really valuable to the city. Basically, just to a little bit to the west of the Chick-fil-A location, they're working on the beginning parts of construction on the shops area over there, and Starbucks is going to be moving forward. So there's going to be another reason for people to stop over there before too long. And it's because of discussion, on this area that we're working with the city attorney about something that I think will ultimately modify different development agreements in ways that can help generate additional sales tax for the city. Those are still working behind the scenes, but as we have more information in the future, I'll be happy to bring those to discussion for the MEDC as well. But I see good potential for those. We had no new businesses open during this past month. We still have Chick-fil-A noted on the development report because they will be opening, this week. There's also been some discussions and additions to the report. The Hills of Town Creek subdivision is looking to add 100 additional single-family home sites, and that area is on the west side of the city, just to the west of the football stadium in Montgomery High School. There's also planning in the early stages for the Town Creek Crossing subdivision, which would include 199 residential home sites and 8 commercial reserves. For each of these two, there's been a map added to the development report to help place the location and the concept for the design. And those are both early in the planning process. And then in addition to that, also attached are the engineers' reports for your review.
Is there an update? Looking at that map, it reminded me of is it the Yogi Bear or Jellystone?
Jellystone.
Jellystone.
It's supposed to be there across from, across back behind the stadium.
Yeah, that was one thing that when I was originally hired here, my initial tour of the city, that was pointed out to me, and explained that was, on the list of something that might be coming to the city. Since then, we've literally heard nothing in terms of that actually developing. So,
Okay.
so I mean, if y'all want, I can work on inquiring about that to see if there really is anything, or if it's just a back burner item that may or may not happen in the distant future.
Okay.
I don't see how it can happen without city water and sewer.
No.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with you.
How about that Fairview community that's being built up on 2854? I see we don't extend that far. Are there plans with the city to try to move out that way? I mean, looks like they've run a pretty big water system out there.
Yeah, that development out there, you're talking about fairly close to the school over that way, right?
Yes.
And yeah, that I believe was part of, it was before my time, part of an ETJ, that overlapped both the city of Montgomery and the city of Conroe, and the developer chose to move that all into the city of Conroe's ETJ. So that would be.
That was closer to town.
Okay.
That one is totally outside of our ETJ.
Okay. In either case, being outside of our ETJ, that is not going to be a future area for us that I see.
Wow.
I would guess their water is, or they're in the Stanley Lake mud.
Okay.
That'd be my guess is who's doing their water. But the one you're talking about, Richard, was kind of much closer to the KOA.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And I'll make a note of the other one.
Yep. Okay, does anyone have any questions? And it looks like Tom left for dinner. So that was around 7:02 that he tapped out. Okay. Anyone else have any questions about the economic development reports for Richard? Any questions about all the goings on?
Are there any updates, Richard, on the downtown walkability improvement plan or comprehensive plan and the timeline for that?
Not at this time, but we expect to have an update for you next month.
Okay.
Do you think we could get like an emailed update before having to wait 4 weeks? It feels like we've been waiting a really long time since our workshop on the subject.
I am sure we can get an email update out and get, and yeah, I can understand me sitting here tonight saying, I'll be back to you in 4 to 5 weeks, if that really does sound, but it's not, I deal with this every day off and on, so it doesn't, for me, 1 month down is, one of the next things on the horizon. I forget sometimes from your perspective, that's 4 to 5 weeks. And so Thank you for, I certainly don't have any problem with trying to get an update on the current positioning and then what the thought is about lining that up with the next meeting for you.
Okay, that'd be great. Because again, given what's going on and how I'm guessing that, we're going to struggle to position ourselves in people's travel plans, it'd be nice to have a fresh downtown, which means we need to have the plan, we need to have the council's approval to go out for the RFQ, and this is all, every time we push back a month, we push back the completion by a month, which is like a year and a half from now. So chop.
And with everything that's been slowed down, in an interesting way, this may be a good opportunity to push something forward because of so many things that have been curved back. Maybe we can break free and get people's attention before others do.
Well, and I hope that it will also mean we get more bang for the buck in terms of the designers, the contractors, the building materials, et cetera. I think that, there's a possibility that, we'll have less competition for these services. And so hopefully we'll be able to pay less.
I think it's a possibility. We had an issue with the city bid a couple of months ago because the bids came in right at the start of the COVID situation. So, there was only one submission that really wasn't favorable to the city because there was too much unknown. we're flipping around on a situation where people have a better handle on the situation, but there's, not the work going on out there.
Right.
So
Right.
I think you're right in that regard.
Yeah, that's the sense I got from the eagerness with which Precinct 1 laid down the road outside on Little Plantersville and Worsham Street, and I assume they are over on Baja and Westway and McGinnis.
Yeah,
Eager
I
to
think
get to work.
they're going to have those done fairly quickly. So I'm sure they're not the only ones who are anxious to put their people to work.
Right. So, all right. It looks like you do not have anything on for the executive session. Is that correct?
That is correct. I do not.
Okay. So unless, sorry, is everyone done with the item number 9? Okay. Item number 11, board inquiry. Does anyone have anything that they would like Richard to have on the agenda? Questions that they would like him to answer in the interim?
And I do have your item for already mentioned for the next meeting.
All right. If there's nothing for that item, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
I'll second.
Go ahead, Julie.
I'll
All right.
second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously and we are adjourned at 7:13. Thank you very much, everyone, for your professionalism and getting the job done.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Lovely to
Have a
see
good
you all.
night.
Good
Thank
night.
Night.
Video quality was fabulous, Susan.
Yes,
Very good job.
Thank you.
yes. Much better for me than last time when Gary unhooked me from City Council.
Oh, no.
Y'all take care.
Thanks,
Good night,
Susan.
everyone.
Good night.
Bye, Richard.